Well, good morning, everybody. Happy weekend. You're listening to the Repco Light Home Improvement Show, sponsored by Benjamin Moore. And rather than tell you all the long list of what's coming up, let me just assure you it's all sheer gold. It's amazing. You're going to be better and smarter having listened to it. That's all coming up. You're going to love it, I promise. But right now, I want to get to the paint point. And let me start by explaining that this story is not one of my prouder moments. I'm not bragging about this. I'm a little embarrassed about it. But it makes for a good paint point, so I'm going to tell it. All right, a couple weeks ago or so, I was getting ready to make dinner, and I realized I'd forgotten to get rice. Now, my daughter Maddie was standing in the kitchen, and I proposed a road trip to go acquire that rice. And I did this because it's always good. I mean, it's so important to spend time, one-on-one time with your kids. And I also did it because Maddie's car was parked directly behind mine, and I was going to have to move it, anyway. And this way, she could move it, and we could use up her gas. So all the way around, it was a win-win-win. Anyway, she was cool with that, and we hopped into her car, and we were off. Now, around my house and around all houses throughout Michigan right now, there's a lot of construction. Now, I take that back. There's either construction around your house or traffic is being rerouted past your house because of construction that's happening in front of somebody else's house. Either way, because of all of that, the traffic as we went to the little store was absolutely insane. Now, at one point, we're sitting at a light trying to turn left, but there's this unending stream of cars that's preventing us from making that turn. And you know how it is. We inch forward looking for a break in the traffic, but there isn't one. It's just this nonstop stream of cars coming from I don't know where, an eternal perpetual stream, and the light goes from green to yellow, and nobody shows even the slightest sign of slowing down or stopping. They just keep coming. So the tension begins to build, and crazy thoughts start going through your mind, at least mine, and I start to wonder, will we ever get through this? Will they just find our bodies here decades from now? Two poor souls who just wanted to make a left turn and get rice, but because of construction, they couldn't. Well, that goes through my head, but of course, before long, the approaching cars, they start to look like they're braking, and Maddie gives it one more quick glance, to make sure that last oncoming car is really stopping. And, at this point, I don't blame her for doing that because as I was watching him, I couldn't tell if he was really stopping or not. I was half expecting him to hit the gas and try to sneak through yet. But anyway, she watches him for that split second, yet realizes that he's stopping, and she starts to go. And that's when the guy behind us lays on his horn. Now, we both jumped, and I'm sorry to admit, was instantly annoyed. Now, if I get honked at, I don't know, my normal instant reaction is to wave at the people. And to immediately squelch any speculation out there, I always wave with all 5 fingers. I'm not waving to be friendly usually, but I am waving to let them know that I see them, I see you, I hear you, and I think you're being annoying and silly. That's really what the wave's all about. It's petty. And I don't do it all the time. But this time, I was all over that wave. I was ready to go. Still a full 5-fingered wave, just to be clear. Well, I'm in Maddie's car, as I said, and that car is unfamiliar to me. So I'm pawing at the buttons frantically on my door, trying to figure out how in the world to get the window down so I can do my wave. And I really wish you could have seen it. It was kind of like a dream, like a nightmare where you can't dial the phone, you can't run, you can't find your pants. Those dreams, those nightmares. I was pushing buttons, but nothing was happening. And my waving window of time was closing rapidly. I was frantic, fingers on every button, but no action on the window. It stayed up. Well, finally, it hit me. Childproof window locks. She had to have that thing employed. So as Maddie's driving, I start frantically shouting at her, and it's so ridiculous. It's like a scene out of some action movie where a spaceship is crashing, and I'm the co-pilot or something. I'm shouting at her with that kind of intensity. Childproof locks, release them. Let me open my window. Well, of course, that didn't work. She didn't really figure out what I was saying. It was garbled and frantic, and she just looked at me and said, "What in the world are you talking about?" And that was it. The window stayed up, my waving window closed, and as we pulled into the parking lot, we were laughing about it. The need to wave, was gone. I wasn't annoyed anymore. Life was good. And that was great because the guy who honked at us pulled into the lot behind us and parked right next to us. Now, on the way into the store, he said, "Hey, sorry I honked. I was frustrated." I looked at him, for a second, and all I could think to say is, "Hey, No worries, it happens. Traffic stinks, right? I'm always big-hearted. Well, the childproof locks on those windows saved me from making a complete idiot out of myself in the heat of a silly moment. Now, let's get to the pain point. We don't have childproof locks in the paint store, but sometimes we kind of wish we did. Not for kids, but really for anyone who's picking colors and then that same day buying the paint. It happens all too often. People walk into the store, grab some color chips off the wall, look them over, make a selection, and then they ask for a gallon of paint and head home to put it on the walls. Now, a fair amount of time, we see them back again in the store pretty soon. But this time, they're a little less excited about everything. They're a little more frustrated. They're a little concerned. They're sad. It turns out that new color looked great here, but you know how it works. It didn't look great at home. It didn't look good at all at home. And now they're trying to figure out what in the world they can do to fix it. And even once that color's fixed, they still know that they've got to go home and do all of the work all over again. Now, on the show here, we talk about it all the time. Your lighting and your room and your furniture, pretty much everything in your space will play a huge role in how color looks on your walls. Because of that, it's absolutely critical to take those color chips home. Or better yet, when you're nearly sure you've got the right color, purchase a Benjamin Moore color sample. For about $6, you can get a half pint of paint, and you can actually apply it to your walls or to a foam board that you can then move around your space. Like I said, we talk about it on the show all the time. It's not news to anybody who listens regularly, but I get it. I know what the heat of the moment feels like. The decision to wave at the guy who just honked at you just feels right. The color you're looking at just seems like it's perfect. Nobody wants to waste time going home, looking color chips over, and then coming back. Not with traffic and construction like it is. But tapping the brakes when you're picking colors is a good thing. I've talked to tons of people who've adjusted their colors slightly after actually seeing their first choice on the walls. When it's just a $6 sample that you brushed onto a 3-foot square area, it's really not that big of a deal. When you've painted an entire room and you bought 2 gallons of paint to do that with, all in a color you don't like, well, that really stinks. So the childproof locks on the windows, they gave me a second to collect my thoughts and let Better Dan resurface. Stopping out at Repco Light with the full intention of looking at colors and possibly grabbing a couple color samples and then looking at those colors in your home, in your own lighting for a day or so. Having that mindset when you walk into the store may help you make the right decision the very first time and avoid any of the unpleasantness that occurs when you mess up your color choice. All right, that's the paint point for the week. Now we're going to take a break, and when we come back, I'll be dishing out the George job. And this time, it's organizing your silverware drawer, and I promise it won't be as dumb as it sounds. Stick around. All right, it's time for this week's George job, and because I picked such a ridiculous name for these small projects that I wanted to talk about all summer long, because of that, I really feel every week that I've got to quickly explain why in the world I'm calling them George jobs. You're listening to the Repco Light Home Improvement Show, sponsored by Benjamin Moore, and a George job is just a small job that I named in honor of George Washington because even while leading the Continental Army against Britain in the Revolutionary War, George Washington was sending letters home talking about home improvement projects that he had going on around Mount Vernon, his own George jobs. And psychologists and historians claim that because he was doing this, because he was focusing on these little jobs, because he was making these seemingly insignificant decisions, literally that helped him clear his mind so he could focus on bigger things and make more important decisions in terms of what was going on in the war. So the idea that I've been focusing on is that when life feels crazy, maybe what you need to do is, just tackle a little project around the house and regain just a bit of control. And today's George job is definitely going to help you do exactly that. We're going to talk about organizing, the silverware drawer. Yeah, sounds insanely ridiculous. And man, so riveting. What did you do today? Well, we started the morning by listening to a guy on the radio talk about how to organize, the silverware drawer. There's going to be a lot of crickets when you explain that, but I will do my best. I will use my superpowers to make this as interesting as possible. And it's still, as silly as I'm making it sound, it's a great project. It's a perfect George job. It's everything a George job should be. It's quick, inexpensive, and it packs a big payoff. Here's the project as I see it. you do you. Step one in this whole process is planning. Every project goes smoother when you do a little bit of planning, even something as simple as this. Think about it this way. If you've organized your silverware drawer in the past, and most of us have done it at least once or twice, if you've done that and it's disorganized again and unruly, well, it really means that there's something wrong with your system. It could be something big, it could be something little, but clearly the system isn't clicking along perfectly. And that means cleaning and organizing the drawer is more than just taking everything out, wiping the drawer down, and then putting everything back. It's possible that your whole system needs a little bit of tweaking. So start by looking at your silverware drawer as it is. What's the big struggle you're dealing with here? These are, heartfelt moments you're having with your silverware drawer. Just sit there, put a little music on in the background, and just think about it. What's the big struggle that you're dealing with? How many different types of items would you like to organize in that particular space? Is it just the standard? You've got some large and small forks, you've got some large and small spoons, you've got some butter knives. Is that really what you're working with in that drawer? Or do you have more? Do you have serving spoons, steak knives, maybe those little gripper things that you use with sweet corn? Who knows? What's going on in your drawer? You want to sit there and figure it out and figure out how many different compartments would be ideal to hold all of those things. Now, also, while you're having that heartfelt moment with your silverware drawer, measure the drawer so that you can get the right dividers and organizers that will meet your needs, and then fill the drawer as completely as possible. That's what you're looking for here, and that's what's going to make or break this project. So spend some time thinking about what would be best for that given drawer, and then find a storage solution that works for that. There are a ton of different options out there. Just 3 of them very quickly. You can play Tetris with various organization trays from varying systems, and you just keep adding them and repositioning them until you've taken up as much of that interior drawer space as possible. That's one route to go. Works really well. Another route, you could look into expandable trays. These are really convenient. They're not terribly expensive, and you can easily make the most of your drawer space by adjusting these organizers to some extent to accommodate your needs. I was really surprised when I dug into them to see how economical and practical they are. So check those out, expandable trays. And finally, probably not for silverware drawers, but for drawers with dish towels and other large items, there are expandable dividers that you can easily add to the drawer if you don't already have them in place. The key here in this whole first step is to do some thinking and some measuring, a little research, and some planning. So as soon as the show's done today, walk over to the silverware drawer, get your cup of coffee, and then scope that drawer out. Figure out what you need, get the right materials, and then later this week, maybe even later today, you can jump into the actual work. Step 1, that's it. Step 2, prepare the work area. Now you're actually getting to the work, and you're going to want to clear your counters off so that you've got a good work area to set all the items that you're going to be pulling out of the drawer. This is not rocket science. Just clean the counter off. Don't clean off just a small area to work in. Clean the area completely and give yourself the space that you're going to want and need to spread all the items out and work comfortably and conveniently. Also, I don't think that this one is quite as obvious, but plan your project for a convenient time. If you're working in a bathroom or in a kitchen, in this instance, you're working in the kitchen, not very many of us keep the silverware drawer in the bathroom. And if we do, well, I can't imagine we've had a lot of guests ever at our home, because the minute we pull the forks and the knives out of the bathroom to eat cake or whatever, yeah, the guests are going to say something about that. So probably in this instance, we're talking kitchen. But if you're working in the bathroom for another project, or you're working in the kitchen for something else, you're doing the cupboards or whatever, remember, these are main areas that the whole family needs to use and likes to use. So definitely don't start this particular project with the drawer around a mealtime. It's crazy frustrating to be in the middle of something in the kitchen, and then all of a sudden the kids are there, milling around behind you, trying to get in the cupboard. They're pulling spoons out of the drawer that you just organized. They're making sandwiches on the counter. It's crazy chaotic. It's a mess. It's frustrating. So plan your project around a time that's not even close to a mealtime. Now, when dinner's a ways off and the counters are cleaned, then it's time to jump into step 3, and that's emptying the drawer. No big surprise here. Get everything out. Every tray, every divider, the drawer liners, all the utensils, get it all out. Step 4, sort, toss, and clean. Now, as you're pulling things out of the drawer, sort through what you've got. Again, not rocket science here. If there are broken items, get rid of them, toss them. Don't hang on to that stuff. If there are things in the drawer that shouldn't be in that drawer, move it to the place that it should be, and do that right away, even if it means dropping it into a drawer that you're probably going to have to organize later. Just get it where it needs to be for now and don't leave it on the counter to have to deal with it later. All right, finally, once you've got everything out of the drawer, you know what's next. Use a spray cleaner to clean it out, wipe it down, clean out all the storage trays that you might have that you just took all the silverware out of, make sure those are clean. And, it depends. Maybe it's the right time to give all of the silverware a good washing, especially the items that don't see daily use. I know there's nothing more fun in the whole wide world than washing an entire collection of silverware. But maybe now's a good time to do that. You decide. That's for you. I won't make any demands at all. Because like I say, this is America. You get to decide. All right. Step 5. Get your organizer trays back in place and do what you can to fill up and use up all of the space in the drawer. Now, if there are still gaps after you've done that and the trays are not wedged in, super tightly, you may want to consider securing them in place. A lot of them usually have sticky feet that are supposed to keep them from sliding around, but in my experience, they don't really work all that well, and the trays always slide around and move around. If you want to stop that, a really simple way to do that is to get some gel glue dots. Basically, they're just adhesive little stickers that you can put on the bottom of the trays to stick them in place. They're not permanent. They're easy to remove, and they're crazy inexpensive. You can grab a pack of 350 of them for about $4. I did a quick search online. Crazy inexpensive. So that might be a way to get all those, organization trays in place and kind of hold them in place, secure them in place. Step 6, refill the drawer and then assess the situation. Fill the drawer with the go-to utensils first and then work your way to the items that you use least often. And then once you've got everything back in place, assess what you did. The key is workability and function. And I'm sure you've done this. I guess I'm not sure of anything. I'm sure I've done this. I suspect other people have. I've organized things brilliantly. But sometimes by putting things in what seems to be an organized place, I've put them in an impractical place. And what happens when I do that is that the kids, or me, but largely the kids, don't use the system that I created. They don't understand the system I created, and it really doesn't take very long before it's chaotic again. So look at your system, look it over, and just kind of think it through. If you've got kids, can they reach what they need to reach easily? Is the system clear when it comes to what goes where? I did this exact same thing with a drawer that contains large spoons for baking, tongs, rolling pins, things like that, and I didn't give myself enough different bins. And while my original organization method made sense to me, none of the kids could really crack my code. And before long, we had everything shuffled all over the place between two different drawers. So make sure your organization arrangement makes sense not just to you, but to the other people in your home who are going to be using it. And that's really important if you want to keep things looking good down the road. Now, I know this is an almost ridiculous thing to talk about on the show, but I really believe it's a great George job. We're getting stuff out of drawers in our kitchen multiple times in a day, and many of us open those drawers and see a world of chaos every time. If that's you, just remind yourself, in the span of a few hours, if that, you can eliminate this aspect of chaos from your life. Food prep will be easier. You'll know where the meat masher is, or the slotted spoon, or the can opener, or whatever you need. And when you're cleaning up after dinner, you'll be tossing your silverware back in neat, organized little bins, and you're going to feel just a little more in control in your space. All right, we've got to take a break. When we come back, I'll be in the studio with Kevin Herman from Benjamin Moore, getting some of your paint questions answered. I'm going to be dealing with one question about paint that seems to be rubbing off of the wall. What in the world's going on with that? And another question about peeling paint on trim in a new house. We'll get all of those answers in just a minute. Stick around. And we're back. You're listening to the Repco Light Home Improvement Show, sponsored by Benjamin Moore. And right now, I'm in the studio with Benjamin Moore's own Kevin Herman.
Morning, Dan. Happy weekend.
Kevin, thanks for being here. Thanks for getting the whole phraseology thing right.
I'm trying.
Normally you say Saturdays. Maybe this is just a thing of the past. Now you're on, and you got it, right? You got it all figured out.
Maybe one of these days we'll be talking about every day.
Oh,
you have a show.
maybe.
Wouldn't that be fun?
I don't know. That'd be a lot of work to produce, and I don't know if anybody would really want to listen every single day.
I don't know how you'd do it. That would be tough. You'd have to take
listen?
a bunch of calls.
To listen to me?
No, not to listen to you.
No, because it's like honey, right? My voice is like honey.
Yeah, so what's the question?
Being poured into your ears. How does that work? There's like honeyed voices, but it's not like having honey poured in your ears. That doesn't make any sense at all.
I don't think that would be enjoyable.
Can you imagine having honey poured?
No.
Can you imagine the bugs?
Yeah,
that would happen.
No, that sounds like torture.
It does. I bet maybe ancient Egyptians tortured people like that. Seems like a thing they might have done. Anyway, let's get to some questions. We've got questions from listeners, and you went through a bunch of these on an episode that we aired a few weeks ago. And today I've got just one or two that we've got time to get through. This question comes from Kira or Kyra. I don't know how to pronounce the name. In Plainwell. So Kira, Kyra, here's her question.
Morning,
My bedroom
Kyra.
walls have dark blue eggshell paint. It's not peeling or anything like that, but when we bump it or wipe it, some of the color rubs off.
Yep.
I want to repaint the room with a matte in a lighter color, a matte finish in a lighter color. What should I do? Can I just sand the blue paint and then prime it? Will that help? Or will my new paint continue to have this problem?
Okay, well, the problem she's experienced is probably just colorant rub-off. And most homeowners are alarmed by that because you think you're washing the paint off the wall. That's not what's happening. When we tint paint and we put a heavy colorant load into it, you might have 15 or 16 ounces of colorant. Blue is one of the worst ones. If you wipe the wall after the paint is cured, you're going to get colorant off on a dark color. It's going to happen. It's nothing to be alarmed about. It's the fact that the resin can't encapsulate all of the colorant, and also there's a product called Surfactant dried in the paint film, which is water soluble, helps to keep everything suspended. It's kind of like a detergent. It's water soluble, but it also has an affinity for everything. So once we get it wet, we wash that wall, we wipe the paint film, we're actually re-wetting the surfactants, and that's holding onto the water and holding onto the colorant, and it's pulling it out of the paint film.
Okay.
It doesn't mean you're washing your paint off the wall. It means you're getting excess colorant off.
Am I changing the color on the wall?
You're not going to change the color on the wall. Sometimes you can see a wash mark. If you have enough light on it, well, just wash the entire wall at that point. But it's not. It is kind of actually an expected thing. I only have one
I thought
product.
you were going to say it's actually a good thing.
No, it's not. It's not a good thing.
Going to be a real,
but it's an expected thing. I only have one product line, the entire Benjamin Moore line, and the only product line that I'm aware of out of all the products that are available from other competitors. I only have one product line that works, and it will not. You won't have colorant release, and that's Aura. It's the only product that will take that much colorant, encapsulate it, and keep it from rubbing off when you go to wash it later. So if you're going to use a matte and you have a dark color and you don't want to see the colorant rub off, then I would get Aura.
Now, she's got an eggshell, so you have seen it. Obviously, it happens in eggshell.
It happens in eggshell all the time.
So it's kind of common.
Yes.
Don't need to freak out. The paint film is still good. You're probably not changing the color, maybe making it a little, shinier or something. You can spot, maybe?
Generally, if you have enough light, you can see where you've washed versus where you haven't, because you've actually removed some surfactants, right? Okay. That's probably the biggest determining factor there.
So when it comes to switching her color, she doesn't really. She's got an eggshell, she doesn't need to do the sanding.
Just make sure you've cleaned any areas that might have hand oils on it or dirt or anything like that. But you just paint right over the top. You don't have to do anything different for preparation. The other thing that you will see when you have dark colors like that, if you run your knuckle across, you'll see a white streak, right? That's called surfactant burnishing. That's just surfactants are loaded in those dark colors because we put surfactants in the colorant so it intermixes with all the different resin types. The more colorant, the more surfactants, the more colorant release you're going to see when you try to wash it.
Does that stop eventually? It never will stop?
I would imagine at some point in the future it would stop. I don't know how long it would take. But it's just nothing to be that alarmed about. It's pretty much expected in dark colors in most products.
All right. Aura,
except for Aura. Yeah.
Aura is one where you guys make the big claim.
Yep, no color rub-off.
Not going to do it.
Yep.
All right. So Kyra in Plainwell, there you go. If you need further explanation or you need us to dig deeper into that, make some product recommendations, reach out to us. Anybody out there working with darker colors, be aware that's probably something you're just going to live with. And it's in products all over the place, not just
I'm not
ours or
surprised when I
yours
see it
or
because I see it
pretty
all the
much
time.
anywhere.
Yep.
All right. Let's get to one more question.
All right.
And this is the last one I've got. Nate in Drenthe asks this. The people who sold us our house did some painting. We didn't notice it all when we went through. Isn't that the case? You ever done that?
Can you say it again? Nate
Drenthe.
in Drenthe.
What did I say?
What is that? Is that
Drenthe.
a place?
Yeah.
Where?
It's kind of by my house. A little bit. I live
your
in
neighbor.
Zealand. Yeah. Well, not really my neighbor.
You live in Drenthe?
No, I don't. But I know people who. It's a real place.
I've never heard of it. All right, I'm sorry.
Well, even though you don't know of
I got
it,
distracted.
you can still answer the question.
What was the question?
Well, he's talking about how people did some painting in a house that he went through, and we didn't notice it when we went through. And then I got stopped at that point because I was thinking about how many times I went through, like the house I bought.
Uh-huh.
And I thought I went through with just this eye for everything because, what I do, I work with paint. And I just looked at everything, and I truly assessed and understood what I was buying. But other people, I knew they would go through the houses and then they'd literally move in later and they'd see it again and realize all these things they missed. I was not missing anything.
All right.
No, I moved in and, man, the refrigerator wasn't even there. I mean, there was all kinds of stuff I missed. Anyway, Nate missed this stuff as well. It's common, Nate. Don't feel bad.
All right.
So the people who sold us our house did some painting. We didn't notice it all when we went through the house at first, but now we've been there for a few months and we're noticing that the trim in the living room is peeling badly. It's painted white, and it peels down to a much shinier paint.
Boy.
I'm wondering if the paint isn't bonding because he painted over an oil-based paint. Is that the cause? And what do I do? The peeling is pretty bad through the whole room. So speak comfort to Nate because I'm sure he's
Good morning, Nate in Drenthe.
on
I
edge.
didn't know that was a town, but
It's a real town, Kevin.
I'll have to go
Let
visit.
It go.
So as far as your trim goes, unfortunately, it sounds like you've got trim that was painted with some sort of gloss paint. It's nice and hard. It's really slick. And whoever painted it last time probably didn't do the proper preparation, which would be clean it, TSP or Dawn, rinse it off, allow it to dry, and then light scuff sand. If you have a really slick, shiny surface like you have on some trim, doors, it could be cabinets, you got to dull that down so the next coat has a chance to adhere. If you don't, there's just no anchor profile, and it doesn't take a whole lot of abrasion sometimes to take that new coat of paint off because it doesn't have enough bond.
Yeah, we see this a
Yep.
fair amount. I mean, not
see it a lot.
but yeah, it happens in this situation. Somebody's moving, they're trying to do some quick touch-ups, make everything look good, and don't think about all the ramifications or working through all the prep steps.
Right. We've talked about the light scuff sand in the past, and so people clean, and I think they understand that concept. Not all of us do it. I'm a little guilty myself of cleaning surfaces, but when you have a shiny surface, you gotta give it some profile on it. A little anchor profile, a little mechanical bond for the finish coat, and then you'll get the full use out of the finish. And
So
it'll be nice and durable.
Let's look at this from a couple different points of view, and let's start with where we're at right now. Let's look at it from the point of view of somebody doing this project for the first time. I'm looking at my shiny trim. Might be oil-based, maybe it's water-based, but it's real high gloss. I'm going to wash it down, TSP or Dawn, and then I'm going to do a light scuff sanding.
Yep.
Zip over it, give it that mechanical.
Very light.
Yep. Okay.
Shouldn't take much time at all. You're not removing coating. You're just dulling the finish down.
Yeah,
That's it.
just giving the new product.
You're working up a
foothold.
sweat. You're working too hard.
Okay, I like that. What do I do next? Would you prime it at that point? Would you go to something like Stix Primer or
You could go to something like Stix Primer,
which is a bonding primer
If
from
we're
Instalex.
doing cabinet doors, something they're going to take an inordinate amount of abuse and abrasion, maybe a Stix is important. But for your trim, if we're using a good top coat, we're using Advance, we're using ScuffX, we're using Optima. These products all have great adhesion. Cabinet coat, urethane, acrylic, all have great adhesion. Probably don't need to do that as long as we clean it and get a little scuff sand. Your higher traffic areas like cabinets, maybe even doors, maybe you'd want to go with Stix.
Okay, as a
Make
primer
sure you
coat.
got a good bond.
And then still hit it with your top
coat,
coats
yep.
of whatever. So, okay, that would be doing it the right way. You mentioned products for trim, Advance from Benjamin Moore. Talk about that quickly because it's a little unusual.
So Advance, you want me to talk about it? So Advance is it's actually an alkyd paint. It's an alkyd resin. It's just carried in water, so it's soap and water cleanup. So the nice thing about Advance is it has fantastic flow and leveling. We can make it look like the old oil, that used to flow and level, look like glass. You can do that with the advanced coating, but soap and water cleanup, and you also don't have the ambering, the yellowing that used to go along with the alkyds. So if we did a pocket door with advanced, we can keep it closed, open it up, and you won't see a big color difference. It's a very nice product for homeowners because of the flow and leveling. It makes you look like you're a professional painter.
Yeah, it's one of those products that honestly makes people a little nervous when you talk to them if they've never done a lot of stuff like that, because it's this weird hybrid product. It feels like it's an oil base that cleans up with soap and water. Oh, I can't use that.
Doesn't smell. Yeah.
No, I had somebody during the whole COVID years. Remember those?
Kind of. You like to forget them.
Good times. But somebody who painted their cabinets. First time painting, first time project. This was the first project in their house. They wanted to do cabinets. I got them advance. I was nervous. They were nervous. They got back in touch with me right after the fact. It was the best experience ever. They loved it. And Advance just gave them great results.
Very, very user-friendly.
So Advance, ScuffX, you mentioned Optima from Repcolite, all would be great on the trim.
Yep.
Let's talk about Nate's specific situation now. That was if you could do it right the first time. Yeah, Nate in Drenth. Kevin is hung up on that name. They've got a nice ice cream place. I mean, there's everything you need there. Let's move on. Nate's situation, he's got peeling paint. He's got to fix this. What's he got to do?
Boy. So I would remove everything that comes off easily. Right, what you probably...
I wonder how easily the trim itself comes off at this point. Put new trim on.
I don't know if I'd go to that trouble.
Okay, you're
I'd
not
try to salvage what you have.
All right.
And generally what I find in things like this is there are some spots where there's no adhesion, and then right next to it you can't remove it. So get rid of as much of the loose stuff that comes off as you possibly can. And if it doesn't come off with some aggressive, with the sanding or whatever, then I would just feather the edges, right? We don't want a hard edge where the paint's left versus where we've removed it. So just feather the edge, a little sanding, and then we're good to go to top coat the whole thing.
You're just removing, feathering. I had somebody ask that once.
Yeah.
We use that term all the time, and then somebody asked, what are you even talking about?
So picture... let's say we've got a couple sheets of paper laying on a table, right? If we painted over the top of that, we'd probably see the edge of the paper pretty easily, right? Because it's a different height. So we sand, pretend that's a paint film. We just sand that edge so there's a smooth transition so you don't see that sharp edge.
That's all we're talking about when we mean feathering. So go ahead, scrape everything off that you can. Do that quick sanding, scuff sand everything. Focus on those edges. Make sure that's smooth. And then what would you do? Would you go with a prime? No, just go with the same process that we did.
Right,
Advance,
Yep,
Optima,
ScuffX,
anything like that. Make sure you wipe off all that dust that you created.
Of course.
With the sanding and all of that. Not a fun situation, Nate. And
no, but not uncommon.
No, not uncommon. And that's the thing.
Probably very common in Drenth.
It's something, well, I don't know. Let's not throw stones anywhere. It is something that we talk about, though, where, you're getting ready to sell a house, and it is tempting to
cut
the
corners,
shortcuts, right?
Yeah.
And I've made I'd rather have somebody have left the trim as it was and just let me take it from start to finish than shortcut something, because somebody's going to pay.
It's a tougher fix.
Yeah, and it's much tougher to fix.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Kevin, thanks for hanging out with me. That's all the questions I've got.
Appreciate
I'm going to release you to the wild.
All right.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll be talking about a topic that's sure to be a hit on an early morning on the weekend, bedbugs. You're going to love it. You're going to want to know what I've got to say. It's brilliant. It's exciting. It's gross. And it's coming up next. Stick around. And we're back, and we're going to talk about something that's probably going to make you squirm just a little bit. It does me anyway. It's a little unpleasant. I want to talk about bed bugs. You're listening to the Repcolite Home Improvement Show, sponsored by Benjamin Moore. And yeah, bed bugs, they're not fun. Not fun, not even a little bit of fun to talk about, but they're even less fun to have. So let's look at it from that way, and let's take a few minutes on this early summer morning and just do a deep dive, a big deep dive into a big squirming pile of bed bugs. All right, bed bugs, they're pretty much active all year round, but the months between June and October, so right now, these months, are usually considered their more active time of the year. Now, at least it seems that most pest professionals get a lot more calls during this time of year. Now, bedbugs travel by crawling from one object to another. They kind of hitchhike and get a ride that way. They don't have wings or anything like that. So they attach to our clothing, they attach to our luggage, and so on, and then they can be carried home without us even being aware. And that's why bedbug activity increases in the summer and the fall, because people are traveling. Kids are moving into dorm rooms and so on and so on and so on. So let's talk about some prevention in the little bit of time that I've got here. If you are traveling, or maybe you're moving kids into a dorm room, maybe those are very real for you in the next few weeks here. Well, here are some things that you can do. For starters, when you walk into that hotel room or whatever room, put your luggage on the luggage rack and then immediately check out the bed and furniture for bed bugs. Now, I know this really, really is a drain on the fun of going on vacation. You know, typically we'll go on vacation. By the time we finally get into the hotel room, we're hot, we're crabby, we're annoyed, and we want to just crash. So we jump on the bed and just lay there for a while. And it's probably the worst thing I can do. So now I get to tell the kids that when we get into the room, first thing we're going to do is turn it upside down in a very controlled and respectful manner and look for bed bugs. So let's talk about the bed. Basically, what you need to do is pull the sheets back, pull the blankets back, and then check the mattress and the box spring, all of those seams, check those for bed bugs. Especially focus on the head of the bed. Adults, nymphs, eggs, all of those things are visible to the naked eye, so you should be able to see them. So check for those. Check for any casings, skins that the bugs may have left behind when they molt, and then also look for dark rust-colored spots. Now, you can lift the mattress and check underneath, too, if that's your thing, if that sounds fun to you, in a strange room. If looking under the mattress sounds like a good time, well, do that. Pop it open or lift it up. Get your flashlight out. Who knows what you're going to find in there? All kinds of goodies. Maybe a wad of cash. Who knows? But anyway, check all of those things. But don't quit there. Once you've decided the bed is clean, then you need to move on and check out any upholstered furniture as well. And if you do see any signs of bed bugs in your room, that is not the room for you. You absolutely need to leave that place of despair post-haste. Get those people on the phone and tell them you want another room in another part of the building. Maybe even another room in another city somewhere. Maybe you just need to go home and throw everything you own away or everything that you brought with you away and start over. Either way, don't stay in that room. Now, once you've cleared the bed and once you've cleared the furniture, still it'd be wise to keep your luggage off of, the bed itself. Keep those suitcases on the luggage racks. Or if you've got space, you could keep it in the bathroom. Bathrooms are areas where the bed bugs are typically not going to hide. So if you've got, only a handful of suitcases or whatever, a little bit of luggage, you could leave it in the bathroom. I come with, basically a department store's worth of luggage because I travel with 5 kids. And that's just a lot of us. So we can't put it in the bathroom. If we do put the luggage in the bathroom, we're going to need to use somebody else's bathroom for the bathroom. So anyway, whatever you've got to do, you do you. Store it zipped up. Don't leave it unzipped and open. That's just inviting little hitchhikers. So store it zipped up. And if you really want to go nuts, you could wrap your luggage in large plastic trash bags and store it that way. All right, when you get home, check your luggage and clothing over before bringing it all into the house if possible. And if you still have any concerns, you could always toss your clothes into a hot dryer for up to 30 minutes. If you do that, that heat treatment will kill all the bed bugs that could be collected or hanging on your clothing and stuff like that. Now, some other considerations for those who are not traveling. When you're purchasing furniture, especially used furniture, make sure you inspect all the little nooks and crannies for signs of bed bugs before bringing it into your house. Reduce the clutter in your space. That reduces the hiding spaces that bed bugs have. Vacuum often. That removes any hitchhikers. And also, be careful when you're using shared laundry facilities. If you're heading to the laundromat, remove your clothes from the dryer and toss them directly into a plastic bag and then bring them home for folding. Don't fold them there. Now, the point isn't to freak people out. It's to make you aware. And since I was squirming because I did a little traveling in the last week or so, I figured I'd share some of that with you so that we were all squirming a little bit. But really, if it helps just one of us avoid picking up bed bugs and bringing them home, we all win, right? We're all winners. Well, I don't know if that's true, but it does sound really altruistic. All right, that's going to do it for this episode. If you want to check it out again, you can find it online at repcolite.com. Whatever you do today, make sure paint's a part of it. Have a great weekend, everybody, and I'll see you next week. I'm Dan Hansen. Thanks for listening.